Honda says we have to change the fuel filter every 1,800 miles. I might have gone over by about 10,000. So let's get the tank off and check the fuel filter and see what 10,000 miles of running around without changing it have done to it. Keeping in mind that this is America, most of our gas is good. Keeping in mind that I've been through some pretty sketchy gas stations, and even a couple that had the tank above ground, and the pump was one of those little things with the meter that clicked over, like right there. So let's pull a fuel filter and see what it looks like and replace it, because apparently I'm due. As all of you have to know by now, is I don't have a whole lot of stock parts left on the bike, the Nomad fuel tank being one of the most obvious, and I've made a few modifications to how everything goes together on my fuel system, just to make it easier to get to. But the basics are all the same. Doesn't matter if you have a stock tank, if you have an IMS tank, a Nomad tank, whatever. You're going to, whatever it takes to loosen your tank up, whether it's a bolt here and there in front, and usually there's only three, right? There's a right side, a left side, and the front. You take those off, and then you come in from the right-hand side of the bike, and if you can lift the tank up just a little bit, you can get to the two major parts. You have your electrical connector, and I really hope this shows up on the video, and then you have your fuel. The electrical connector simply unplugs by squeezing it and pulling it down. Squeeze it and pull it down. It's also connected to the tank via a little clip that you have to unclip and push that back through, and then the whole wire just falls free. On your fuel line, the first thing you have to take off is this little guard. That just pulls straight down, and that's what it looks like. What this does is it makes sure that your actual fuel line can't fall off and that it's plugged in all the way. So if you don't have your fuel line in all the way, this won't fit on. So this does double duty. It keeps everything together, and it makes sure it's together right. The next thing you guys are going to have is probably a little rubber piece that covers all that. I took mine off so that I could get to my fuel line easier. Now when you look up in there, you see that little green thing? It's got wings on the end. You grab that and you pull that straight down until it clicks. And when that's hanging all the way down, your fuel line is ready to come off of the bottom of the pump. And it just goes straight forward, but it's on there really, really hard. So you're going to have to wiggle and push, and there it goes. Oh, and then you're always going to get a little gas out, okay? If you haven't bothered to run your tank out, go learn how to siphon gas out of your tank, so it makes this next part easier. And once you've got those two things, the electrical and the gas connection free, then however your tank comes off, it's going to come up and off. You're going to drip a little bit, but that's okay. And then your fuel pump, if you don't know, and if you don't know, you probably have a stock tank anyways, right? You haven't taken it apart yet? Your fuel pump sits right here. Again, it doesn't matter which tank you have on, whether you've got the Nomad, the IMS, or the stock tank, it's all basically the same. You're going to look at it and you'll see this metal plate that actually holds everything in place. On mine takes an Allen wrench to get the screws off. Yours might take a socket, whatever it is. You go ahead and start loosening these up. And as you're doing that, just take note of the order in which your washers and your spring washers go on. They should all be pretty much the same. Some of you are going to have an extra piece that goes right here that holds the wires for the electrical pump in place so that they don't hang down. Okay, now I've got them all loose. I want you to take note of how this goes together. Mine, again, is a little different. So you've got the nut You've got a sleeve. You've got one of these is a regular flat washer, and one of these is a spring washer, a cup washer. The cup faces down so that when it's under tension, it pushes the bolt back up. What I recommend for you guys, if you're not sure, go ahead and grab your phone, take a picture of it, take a picture of how this goes together. And I like to set these aside already pre-assembled. On the Nomad tank, this is the way it goes on, okay? So I'm going to set these over here, just exactly the way they go on. Okay, here comes the last one. Here's the little retaining plate. All right, we're going to set that aside. And then here's the pump. Okay, and then we're going to pull the pump out. And we're going to get gasoline everywhere. So here's the filter. But there's the old filter. And here's what a new filter looks like. That thing's going to be leaking gas forever. So here's the next bit you're going to take note of. I want you to look at how those wires go on. Green, yellow, black, white. Take a picture of that, because if you pull those apart and you forget how they go in, you can switch them around a little bit. Green, yellow, black, white. Right? All right, we got that up. Looking at the O-rings look good. That little dust seal looks good. Next we're going to pull these wires out, which you've already taken a picture of so you can't forget what they are, right? And they just pull right out. There's no trick to this. They just pull right out. There we go. Try not to break them either. You have to resolder everything, right? So remember how they went. Next, we're going to separate the base from the pump. And you know, Honda is super reliable. This part, it just sketches me out the fact that you have to tear this pump down so far to get to anything. But basically, can you see the difference in coloration between this outside part and this inside part? That's two separate parts. So you're going to push in and pull out gently. Don't break it. There we go. And it just unclicks. I don't know if that's showing up very good. Right, there's three of them, 1, 2, 3. And then once you have all three of them unclipped, can you see the big gap there? Then you just kind of wiggle, squeaky, squeaky, and pull them apart. There we go. So there's the base. And now we've got the pump and the filter and your reservoir sensor or your low fuel sensor. Awesome. Next, this little bottom part slides out. And you can see here's the filter and here's the pump. We're going to separate the filter by giving it a little twist. See how it unhooks? That makes sense? And then it just pulls out, I say it just, there it goes, okay. So here's the filter and here's the pump. And there's the old filter, and on the outside the mesh looks pretty good, but let's cut this open and see what's inside of it. So you got some channels the stuff can run through, and then the actual material that traps whatever dirt, I guess, got through. And so you got an outside screen, this inside squishy stuff, and then a screen inside of that. And then now we're looking at the actual inside of the filter, the channels that let the fuel flow through it. And the inside is super, super clean. Old, new, 10,000 miles, 0. If you're curious, you can pull the fuel pump out. It just kind of slides out. There's a right? Just make sure, shoot, all right, I did it. There's an O-ring in there that this seals onto that, and whenever you take that out, that damn O-ring always falls out. Okay, so the O-ring's in place-ish. There it goes. And then, right, can you see it? There's an O-ring way down in there, and then this has to go inside the O-ring. Again, Honda, amazing engineers, but man, that's a complicated hunk of stuff for a frickin' fuel pump. Anyways, what do I know? 10,000 miles, it's still kicking. So this goes on just the way it came off. Get your hook lined up, and then shove her on there. And there's this little tabs here that'll keep you from putting it on too far, in theory. Okay, that's on. And then a little base. So this black part actually lines up with the bottom of the fuel filter. See how that goes on? And that kind of keeps everything in place. Now, if you don't have it on far enough, right, when you go to do this next part, it won't go together. So you also have an O-ring here to make sure you don't mess up. And if you're ever wondering, this is kind of the reserve of your pump. So the gasoline gets picked up here at the bottom. It gets sent to the top of the pump out here, right? And it comes down and then comes out the front. Everything that sits inside of this little cup down here ensures that your fuel-injected bike fuel pump always has pressure in it. Now, if everything goes back together, then everything goes back together. You're just going to click those 3 pieces back together, and now you're going to put the wires back on. And shit, what was the order? So how did they go in? Green, it just goes down and should click. Green, yellow, black, white. Try not to break the white one. It's pretty small. There we go. Green, yellow, black, white. Now, what is up with this? Why would they cross though? Why would they not, right, just put them in order? But they're all completely out of order. Oh, Honda. Your pump's all back together. Brand new, nice, pretty white filter on it. We're going to throw some oil or some grease around this O-ring to put it back in, especially if you have a stock tank or a Nomad tank. The reason being that it's an O-ring seal. It's a traditional, normal O-ring seal. This O-ring goes up inside here and seals on the inside of this, not on the outside. So we don't want the O-ring to roll, and it's a pretty big O-ring, so it could do some weird stuff. And that's pretty much it. And then the pump just goes back in with the outlet facing the front of the bike. Oddly enough, this will go on sideways. Not sure why. Right? There's actually 3 different positions that the outlet can go out of. I have a feeling though, if your outlet comes out here, it'll run into the frame, but who knows. Anyways, that goes on like so. That goes on like so. Oh. There we go, and there's has that little cutout so that goes on. I'll put these all on loosely so that I can make sure that these inner sleeve parts line up with the holes, because they're not all perfect. Right, that one doesn't want to go in for whatever reason. And then I'm going to torque these down to 8 foot-pounds, which is what Honda recommends, and I guess it can't really hurt for Nomad tank. I don't remember any recommendation for a torque setting on these, but stock tank is 8 foot-pounds. And then, as usual, do it in a star pattern, blah, blah, blah. Then we'll put it on the bike, put some gas in it, make sure it doesn't leak, and then fire it up. That's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me and watching me change my fuel filter. Thanks for watching. Maybe next time we'll go around and we'll change the valve stem cores. I don't know. Just see who wants to tune in and watch that. You still watching? All right, get out of here. I'm done with you.